for you? Come on now.
All right, we're live. We're live.
Okay.
Welcome to the Fantasy Baseball Beat, part of the Pitcher List Podcast Network. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Torres. I'll be your host today. It's our Valentine's Day episode. It'll be a shorter one today. Hopefully that's not a sentence I hear from my wife later tonight. But no, we're going 45 minutes tonight. Hard stop. And by that I mean the episode of the podcast.
Oh my God.
You know what I'm saying. Anyway, we got a good one.
You just absolutely sealed your chances, pal. Your
Absolutely.
fate is sealed. It is a 0. It is a 0. Sorry,
It
Ingrid.
was a 0. But anyway, we've got a good one for you tonight. I had this idea that I'm sure is totally unique. Never, ever been done before. In the spirit of Valentine's Day, for today's episode, we'll be talking about players that we love at each position. Again, I know I blew some minds out there with that very unique concept. So let's get the rose petals spread out, get the champagne ready. Let's dim those lights. Fellas, let's get to it. Mike, start us off with the catcher that you most love in fantasy baseball drafts right now.
So every guy that I picked on this list is somebody who is not getting enough love. And my catcher that I chose was Gabriel Moreno. I love Gabriel Moreno, where he's going. In DC's right now, he's going to like 201. This is a guy that can really hit. And when we had Jack Summers on a few weeks ago, you know, he talked quite a bit about Adrian Del Castillo not being somebody who might not make the team and is not a threat to Moreno. I think Moreno's got a really good hit tool. I don't know how many home runs he's going to hit, but at catcher, I'm looking for a player that's not going to hurt me. And I think Gabriel Moreno is a guy that could hit 280, maybe hit 10 to 15 home runs and knock in some runs. I think he's a do no harm type of catcher. I'm really big on Gabriel Moreno this year. I think he's a really good selection.
Love it. Yeah, I think at his price, he is a no-brainer. Dave, who do you got at catcher?
Well, because it's Valentine's Day, I'm going to go deep here. I'm going with. Oh,
this is a family show, man. Come on, let's keep it clean.
It's a deep sleeper. What are you guys talking about?
Okay.
Oh boy.
I'm going with Ivan Herrera. I think he's going to be the starter. I liked what I saw from him last year. He got sent down mid-season, but he made notes that he was actually tweaking his swing. Last year, he crushed all pitches. He was 293 against the fastball, 353 against the sinker, 357 against the slider, and 353 versus the changeup. It's a nice walk rate. It's a decent K rate. And if he actually qualified, there's a ton of red on that StatCats page. He is ADP around 239 or 240. Definitely in leagues with two catchers. I love him as my second catcher. And I think there's a potential for top 10 production.
Okay. What about if you're in a one catcher league? Do you think he's viable there?
In a one catcher league? No, I don't think he's there yet.
Okay.
But I wouldn't be against it if you wanted to see, if it could be possible. So if you're desperate at catcher and you're the last one picking a catcher and out of your in your league, give it a shot. But if it doesn't work out just yet, you drop him.
Yeah. I think that makes sense to just kind of see what the playing time looks like. The only reservation I have with him is the end of last year, or whenever Contreras was hurt last year, everybody kind of assumed it was going to be Herrera. He would be the full-time guy. And they actually split pretty evenly with Pedro Pages and him. So, I assume that they're going to give Herrera more run, because he is the catcher of the future. Mm-hmm. But, I think that makes sense to kind of take him at the end of a draft if you're in a one catcher league and see what the playing time looks like. If it looks like he's getting, 65, 70%, then I think based on the skills, he probably would be viable even in those formats. And I apologize in advance if I sound more nasally and raspy than usual. Battling a cold, so just want to put that out there.
I think you sound like Barry White. I think you sound great.
Beautiful. All right, that's what I'm going for. It's perfect for tonight. It's going with the
Oh
Valentine's Day
God, here
theme.
we go. Oh, here we go.
Anyway, my catcher.
Sorry, Ingrid. Sorry.
Yeah. My catcher is Shea Langoliers, or as I like to call him, Shea Bangoliers, another totally unique nickname that nobody's ever called him. But yeah, I love Langoliers this year. He's going around pick 130 in NFBC drafts right now, and I think the power is legit, man. I said this on last week's episode. I really think he's Cal Raleigh about 40 picks later. If you look at their underlying skills, they're batted ball quality, their contact rates, they're almost identical. And we talked about the shift in ballpark last week, and I do think that makes a difference. Even if that adds 3 to 4 home runs for him on the year, like that changes the player's value quite a bit at the end of the season. I think moving to that park in Oakland is definitely capable of bumping him up to that 30 home run range. So, and that lineup too is getting better. Last year I kind of liked Langoliers, but then I was like, nah, he's in. I don't like the lineup. I don't like the park, and he still delivered. So now you put him in a much better lineup, much better park, and just skill. Like we saw the progression in his skills. He's entering his that magical age 27 season. Like I think it's all coming together, and I think we could see a really peak year for him. And I love him at ADP. We're gonna move on to first base. Let's go to you, Mike. Who you like or not like? Who you love at first base?
I love a lot of people, right? But like the guy that I really love at first base this year that's kind of going under the radar, I feel, is Nathaniel Lowe. Traded to Washington. It looks like he's going to bat cleanup on that team. That lineup is really kind of an interesting lineup if you've spent any time looking at it. I mean, they've got C.J. Abrams, Dylan Cruz, and James Wood allegedly hitting in front of him. And then Lowe behind him as Josh Bell, Luis Garcia, those types of guys. I know that when you look at the stats, when you look at what he's done over the course of his career, he's been a consistent player, never been what you would consider to be a great player. However, he's played in at least 140 games 4 years in a row. He had only 62 RBIs last year, 69 RBIs last year. I'm sorry. It's the first year that he's been below 70 in the last 4. He's not going to steal a lot of bases, but he doesn't strike out a lot. He's got a pretty good ISO. It's a guy that gets on base quite a bit. I really think that there's an opportunity here for him to get back into that 25 home run club and knock in a ton of runs on a team that is really kind of developing, even though they don't have a closer. We've talked about that a couple of times on the show. I like the move for him from Texas's lineup to Washington's lineup, especially with him batting cleanup. I think this is a guy that could really kind of expand a little bit this year. Never a huge power guy. He's always been in the high teens. Except for the 1 year, 2 years ago, he had 27 home runs, I believe. I do think that this is a guy that could hit 25 home runs and easily have 100 RBIs in a burgeoning lineup in Washington. Feel like he's kind of flying under the radar around pick 253 in DCs right now. Definitely a guy that I would love to have as a corner infielder, and I would not be totally uncomfortable with him being my starting first baseman either.
I think he is kind of like that fallback first baseman for a lot of people. Like if you decided, excuse me, that you just wanted to wait at the position, he's in that group with like Mountcastle, Andrew Vaughn, of backup first baseman, like the last stand at first base. I agree. I like Lowe. I think I would be much more comfortable, like you said, with him as my corner infielder. But yeah, I think he's going to give you a solid production. The other thing too, and I don't know, maybe there's nothing to this, but like we saw a player like Jesse Winker steal, 15 bases after never stealing before when he was on the Nationals. We know they're the most aggressive team in baseball on the base paths. Like, what if he adds 5 to 10 stolen bases to his line, and gives you 18 home runs with a 260 average and good counting stats. Like that's pretty solid.
I think so too.
Yeah, so I think we should at least think maybe he's never been a big base stealer, but I mean they make everybody go on that team. So be interesting to see if maybe that's just like a little bonus that could be added by the move to Washington. All right, Dave, who do you got? First base, who do you love?
I love Cody Bellinger. I think
No.
I do. Hey,
I know you have like this. He's like your kryptonite, man.
but now
Tell me what you see, Dave. Tell me. I'm
Okay.
going to shut up and listen.
he's in the perfect place to play right now.
No.
He pulls the ball more than 40% of the time every season since his first year. And he's done really well the last 2 seasons of lowering his strikeout rate. He's walked more, he's hitting breaking pitches. And I think that now with the move to Yankee Stadium, I think we could see 30 plus home runs. And I think that if you miss out on the elite first base at the top of the draft, there's a path for him to return value. We've seen him do it before. He's healthy now, and his injuries in the past have all been just like physical running into things or bruises and stuff like that. I think there's a chance here for at least 30 home runs.
Dave, let me ask you a follow-up question to that. If he hits 20 home runs and steals 10 bases, would you be satisfied?
20 and 10? I'd be okay with it. He's going at what pick around 100 or so. So I would expect a little bit more. He did better than that last year, power-wise, and I'm expecting 30. So
that's a bold statement. I like it.
Well, it's Yankee Stadium, right? The short porch in right. I think he's gonna feast on that. So
The only thing with him, man, is he doesn't hit the ball hard anymore. You know, we know that Bellinger was a guy who liked to tinker with his swing, right? And that kind of got him in trouble. Like he had some, I think it was 2022, like he was bad, you know, was striking out almost 30% of the time, hitting 210, you know, and then it seems like after that, it's like he made an adjustment. Like, okay, he had to change his approach.
Yeah.
And it seemed like he went for more contact and sacrificed a little bit of batted ball quality. So I don't know. I mean, I see the trend of the contact quality going down, even though he hit 26 home runs in 2023. I remember like when we looked under the hood, like I remember prepping for drafts last year, and I'm like, he got pretty lucky. Like he way outperformed what was expected of him in terms of power. So, you know, last 2 years, hard hit percentage, according to StatCast, 31.4 in 23, 32.4 last year. Pretty big fall from where he was during his, you know, that MVP season, even 2020. So listen, man, as a Yankee fan, I hope you're right. Maybe he does tap into that short porch and is able to take full advantage of it.
That's the key, though. That to me, that's the key. He pulls the ball. It's a short porch, and he's in a pretty good lineup, so he's going to get more opportunities.
Yeah,
okay. I'm super interested to see how that plays out.
Yeah,
I'm going to keep it with the Yankees, and my guy is Paul Goldschmidt.
Oh my God!
Yeah, we're the Yankee Homer podcast today.
I won this position.
No, oh no way, bro. No way. Listen.
Oh my God, here comes the typical Yankees blind optimism love. Here we go. I'm gonna listen. I'm gonna stop talking. I'm gonna listen.
All right. You know me. I'm actually with the Yankees. Like I'm actually more I don't know. I'm more negative towards my own players, you know, especially any move that Brian Cashman makes. Like I'm automatically looking for like the reason why it's not going to work out, which is usually correct, by the way.
It's hard to believe that a Yankees fan would ever be negative, Chris.
Yeah, we're just miserable at heart, you know. But I really do like the Goldschmidt signing. I think getting out of St. Louis, and maybe we're focusing too much on this, Dave, but I think getting into that park, I think it's really going to play well for Goldschmidt too, because even though he's a right-handed hitter, I mean, the park factor for Yankee Stadium is still really good for right-handers. And he's also a guy that has been known to go to the opposite field. And I think he could also take advantage of that short porch and right. And I know last year was a down year, but if you look under the hood, I think it would change your tune a little bit, because people just assume like, oh, he's 36, he's going to be 37. Like, this is just a natural decline. But the skills don't indicate that. I mean, he was barreling the ball 11% of the time, a 48.1% hard hit percentage. His contact rate was at 75%. Even though the K rate went up, the overall contact was still fine. So I also think he's going to be revitalized being on the Yankees, being in that stadium. He's going to play every day. Guy who's been healthy through his career, played 155 games last year. So the Yankees, and like the way the Yankees treat these guys that Cashman brings in, like, he gonna make sure he plays. Like, they play Josh Donaldson every day because he was Cashman's guy, right? And he wanted to make sure that, he proved that. So Goldschmidt will play every day. Where he's going around pick 170, I think is fine. Like, I think he's like a viable starting first baseman. I have him in one league. I got him around 200 as my corner. Like, that, to me, that's ideal. And add in, like, he stole 11 bases last year.
Mm-hmm.
Not the fastest guy, but guy knows what he's doing.
Good base runner.
He's a good base runner. Wasn't caught one time last year. So even if he gives me 8 stolen bases, like, this would be one of my pieces of advice going into drafts this year. Don't discount the importance of even those like 8 to 10 stolen base guys, because that adds up. I've talked about it before. You don't want to take zeros. Those zeros do hurt. But when you could get a guy, like, if you could just chip away, with each position and get a guy who can give you 5 to 10, and then obviously you need, your big speed guys on top of that. I think it helps you build a much more balanced team. So that's another reason I like Goldschmidt. He gives you speed at a position that a lot of guys aren't going to give that to you.
Yeah, he could definitely hit 250 with 25 home runs, right? And if they get that out of your first baseman, you're going to feel pretty good, especially if you get those 10 steals.
Yep.
I just hope with age, though, he's not a slow starter every year. I watched a lot of him last year, and Mike, this because I drafted him. I took him, and he just looked really slow at the plate, like swinging at things that he shouldn't be swinging at, and he was behind the count. And he had an excellent second half, but I mean, a first half of like you could be looking at a first half of about 220 with a few home runs, and it's just, I don't know. At his age, I am a little bit worried.
I know what you're worried about, Dave. I know you're worried the same thing that I am, is that he's Jose Abreu.
Oh God, yeah. That is my one. Trust me. After my experience with Jose Abreu last year, I did think about that.
I told you not.
No, you did. But I think it's a different profile. The skill,
I agree.
If I just take away the name and just look at the skills, I would conclude that this is a player that I want at this point in the draft.
His skill set is way better than Abreu's. Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, absolutely. So I still think he's got another solid year in him.
And we haven't seen him play without a beard, so there's that, right?
Listen, I gotta admit, that's a thing. That is a thing for some of these players. Like, they lose some of these players when they go to the Yankees, they shave their beard and they look weird. They look like something don't look right about them.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Like, if you told me right now that I had to shave to be on this podcast, like, I'd be like stumbling over my words. I would lose all of my mojo, all of it, without this beard. So I can imagine you're on TV and you're used to having a beard your whole adult life, and then all of a sudden you got to shave it off. Like, I think that's a thing. And the Yankees just got to get with the times. It's stupid. It's a stupid rule. Enough. That's it. Second base. Let's go. Mike, who do you got? Who do you love?
So the guy that I really like, and this will come as no surprise to Dave, who will probably roll his eyes, and that's okay, is Jonathan India. I really like Jonathan India. I always have liked Jonathan India. I've had him on a lot of teams over the years. If you guys had to guess how old Jonathan India was, how old would you say he was?
28.
Yeah, I was going to say that. So I'll take 27.
Well, you guys are really smart. And he is 28.
Yeah.
What I like here is that he's going to a lineup that I feel is better than the lineup that he was in Cincinnati. The reports are that we've gotten are that he's going to lead off. There have been reports that he's also going to have multi-positional eligibility. So right now he's got second base and out eligibility. He's going to have third base eligibility from what it sounds like, and outfield eligibility from the way Kansas City is talking about using him. What I really like is that he's hitting in front of a guy named Bobby Witt Jr., who you might have heard of, who's pretty good. Another guy named Vinny Pasquantino, who's pretty good. Another guy named Salvador Perez, who's also pretty good. Now, don't look at the bottom half of that lineup because it's a little frightening, but I really do think that India is the type of guy, if healthy, even though his feet were wrecked last year, he was still running. And so I really do believe that this is a player that could get you 15-15 really easily, 15 home runs, 15 stolen bases with a batting average in the 250s, 260s. If he's healthy, I think he's going to play. The interesting thing is that last year, despite all the misgivings about his feet and whatever, he played 151 games last year. And so I think this is a player that doesn't strike out a lot. He's got a pretty good walk percentage. He's going to be playing in a better lineup. I think he's going to be invigorated by playing on a better team. I really think that this is a guy that could play 130 games plus, hit you 15 home runs, get you 15 steals, knock in 60 runs or whatever, and maybe score 80 to 90 runs. And where he's going in drafts right now and DCs, he's 251. So I feel like this is a really good option to have as a middle infielder who also could have eligibility as a Swiss Army knife that can really help you down the road. I really like Jonathan India, and I think that he's a guy that other people should be looking at more seriously, especially given his ADP.
All right. Mike loves Jonathan India. Dave, tell us who you love at second base.
I've got Brandon Lowe. And simply put, it's the new stadium. I love everything about this new stadium for any left-handed batter. He's a power hitter. He's got 20 plus home runs in 3 of his last 4 years. 71st percentile hard hit, 76 bat speed, 84 barrel percentage. I see 30 plus home runs this year because he's done it in the past. And even though he is injury prone, and he is, I'm still in on him because even though he's been injury prone, last couple of years, he's played 109, 107 games. He still managed to hit 21 home runs in each of those years. This new ballpark is going to be great for him. It's going to be great for left-handed batters. He was hitting 21 home runs in a stadium that suppresses power. I love Brandon Lowe. You can get him at pick around 240 or something like that. I think he's a top 10 second baseman.
Ooh, that's bold. He also chips in with some steals too, right? Doesn't he get 7 or 8 steals every year too, pretty much?
I think so. Let me double check what he did last year, but 5 steals last year.
5 last year, 7 the year before.
7 before. You're right. Yeah.
I think we're all in, especially based on our discussion last week about the new ballparks in Sacramento and Tampa. We seem to all be all in on these players that could take advantage of it. Like you talked about Aranda last week, talking about Brandon Lowe in that Tampa ballpark that has dimensions like Yankee Stadium. So I did hear one interesting thing though, and I was listening to another podcast. I think it was the Launch Angle podcast, and I think it was Jeff Zimmerman talking about how we got to be careful not to double count. Not saying that you are in this case, Dave, but this was a kind of a reminder for me. Like the projections probably already have that, or they do have that change in ballpark already baked in. So, I know like sometimes I'm like, oh, well, then, I could add 5 to his projection, and I think maybe the projections aren't completely capturing the ballpark change, but just something to be aware of when thinking about these players going to the new parks. So anyway, let me give you my second baseman. Now, this is a guy that I think is specific if you're in a non-OBP league. If you're in a batting average league, this is a guy that I really love. He doesn't walk a lot, so that's why I give you that disclaimer. But it's Jordan Westburg of the Orioles, and another guy that is benefiting from a change in park. This time with Camden Yards just moving the right field wall in, but or rather the left field wall, and but that matters, right? Like for him, he's a guy who likes to pull the ball in the air. He hits the ball really hard. I was shocked. I didn't have any Westbury last year, and I didn't pay a ton of attention to him. But going in the offseason and looking at his underlying skills, I was pretty shocked at the quality of contact that he made. He had a 46.1 hard hit percentage, 12% barrels, max EV 111.2, average EV 91.1. Like these are all legit. These are power hitting numbers with a 74% overall contact rate. I think we would be taking Jordan Westburg much higher if he had not had, I believe, Dave, and correct me if I'm wrong, I believe it was a wrist injury at some point last year.
Yeah.
He missed extended time with that. He was in the midst of the breakout before that. And then I think even when he came back from the injury, like he wasn't quite 100%. So I think that brought down his overall line and maybe people's perception of him. But this guy was having a full-on breakout last year, and he's someone who also gives you some stolen bases, had 6. So one of those players that I mentioned before that, maybe 8 to 10 is a reasonable projection. Hits in a good lineup. And another guy who's entering, I believe, he's entering his peak years. I believe he's 25 or 26. So, these are the type of profiles. Like I want to take a player like this before the breakout fully happens, right? And I feel like we're right on the cusp of it, and this is the time to buy. He's 25, about to turn 26. So, I think we could see a peak season here from Jordan Westburg. So, definitely he is a player that I love at second base.
It was a right hand fracture, not a wrist.
Okay, right hand fracture.
Yeah, but same area and pretty much the same thing. What you're talking about with power coming back. So,
yep. All right, we're going to move on to shortstop, but before we do that, we are going to take a quick commercial break. All right, we are back. Mike, lead us off here. Who do you love at shortstop?
It was funny, we were talking about it in our little text message chain that we do on a daily basis between all the lunacy at my school this week of what I was dealing with. But a guy that I really, really like that I don't understand why people don't seem to like in fantasy is Jeremy Pena. He's this, starting shortstop for the Houston Astros. People know who he is. He's going into his age 27 season. And all he's done in the 3 years that he's been in the league is hit double-digit home runs and double-digit steals, and he's never had an average less than 253. He had 263 and 23. He had 266 last year. The quality of contact seems to be better every year that he's in. The strikeout rate has gone down every season he's been in. 24.2% at 22, down to 17% last year. He does not walk a lot, but here's the thing about Pena. 136 games, 150 games, 157 games. I don't think there's any chance that this guy is not going to play every day for Houston. I think he's going to play well over 150 games. I think 20 home runs is within striking distance. I would suggest, thinking more about the high teens, but he's also going to steal somewhere between 15 and 20 bases. And I think he's going to hit like 265, 270. And where he's going in drafts at this point, it's not an exorbitant price to pay. He's the number 18 shortstop coming off the board. Again, if this is a guy that you get as your middle infielder, say that you've already got a shortstop like a Bobby Witt or an Ellie Cruz, and you get Pena, who's going to get a lot of at-bats, who's going to play a lot of games, it's not going to hurt you. I like this player a lot where he's going in drafts at this point. And I don't understand. I feel like maybe it's because people feel like he should be hitting another level or that there's an untapped piece here that he hasn't gotten to yet. Who cares? If you get double-digit home runs and double-digit steals out of your, middle infielder, it'll be way the game. And so I think that Jeremy Pena is a guy that players should be looking at more.
Yeah, absolutely. Boring but beautiful. I think he's He gives you production across the board, like you said. So I love that pick. Let's go with someone that personally I don't love. A lot of people, are not in love with him based on his performance last year. Dave, tell us about the shortstop that you picked.
Yeah, I took Bo Bichette. I know a lot of people are out on him, but I do like him this year. The biggest concern with him is injury. But I think, actually, I know last year he was playing hurt. So the previous 4 seasons, his batting average was 298, 290, and 306. Those are the last 3, sorry. And then this one was 225. The first 81 games in each of those 4 seasons, he had 15 home runs, 12 steals in 21, 12-5 in 2022, 14-3 in 2023, and 4-5 in 2024. He only played 81 games. He did finish with a 255 XBA, so he was 30 points off of what he actually did hit. Something just seemed off, and essentially it was his ailing calf. It was a calf injury that started in the year before this past year that he was nursing. He tried to do some off-season treatment for it. Ultimately, it didn't work, and it looked like he was just playing hurt all year long, trying to manage it, trying to work through it. He just didn't hit the ball hard last year. That was the only thing, and you could say that was a manifest of him trying to work through his calf injury. He is in a contract year. He's 27 years old. He's someone that was drafted in the 3rd round a year ago. He's at about an ADP of around 130 or so, and the 13th shortstop off the board. I'm in for a bounce back. I think we could see at least 2010, maybe 25-15 with a good batting average.
All right. Dave, you are on the Bo Bichette train this year. I will not be joining you. All right. Moving on to my shortstop. I'm going to the first round. Actually, this he's on the cusp of the first round, depending on if you're in a 15 or 12 team league. And that's Francisco Lindor. And I tweeted this a couple weeks ago, and I stand by it. Like, I really think Lindor should be easily a first round pick. I don't know what this guy needs to do in order to get into the first round. I tweeted it before last year. I was looking at his profile. I'm like, I don't know why. Like, Lindor is a 2nd round player right now who should be in the first round. What did he do? He went on to provide first round value, right? And again, like his ADP really hasn't changed that much this year after putting together a stellar season. Now you have him, you have Juan Soto going to the Mets. He's going to be hitting in front of him. There's no holes to poke in his profile. I mean, he is as good of a bat as anybody to go 30-30. You're getting a balanced profile. I was trying to figure out, like, why are the projections kind of low on his stolen bases? And I think they're still pulling in previous years before the stolen base rules changed, where he was only at like 16. And I think actually that's kind of a little bit of a hack this year is to like look at some of these players and look closely at their stolen base projections, because some of these projections might be undervaluing some of these players that really became more aggressive when the new rules came into place. And I think Lindor is a perfect example of that. I mean, he went for 30 plus, or may have been 30 on the dot in 23. And then last year had 29, I believe. So like, this is a guy who, like, he has taken full advantage of these rules. So I don't expect like a major pullback there. And I mean, listen, he's in a good lineup. He's going to be leading off. There's no holes to poke. Really, he's not that different. And maybe people think this is like a crazy thing to say. He's not that different if you look at their profiles than Bobby Witt, right? Like, their contact rate is similar, fly ball rate, hard hit rate. Everything is similar. The only thing that Witt has on him really is that he's a little bit more aggressive. Like Witt didn't have that many more total stolen bases, but his attempts were significantly higher than Lindor. So that's usually good in it. Like I would project Witt for like at least 5 to 10 more stolen bases than Lindor, but like other than that, there's not a huge difference. So I took Lindor as early as pick 11 in one draft because I really didn't love the other options at the end. And usually that's like a place where I usually like Corbin Carroll, and he was gone. So I was just like, you know what? I'm just gonna get Lindor because like I'm gonna lock down shortstop. I'm gonna get a balanced profile. And I could just build off of that. So I love
he's terrific. He's terrific, and I love him too. I mean, Dave, you took him in one of the mocks that we were in, didn't you? Real early too.
I took him 9th actually. Now to be fair, I had already had taken Betts. I probably would have taken Betts over Lindor, but I'm pretty happy with how the things turned out. And he's just reliable and durable, and he's going to play, and he's healthy, so can't go wrong there.
Yep. All right, third base, Mike. Who do you got?
So I'm going to shout out a couple of our friends, a couple of people that are big champions of this guy, Bubba and the Bloom, and their mascot is this guy, Luis Rengifo. I really took a deeper dive into him after looking at what Ryan and Bubba were talking about with him, and he's a really interesting player to me. You know, this is a player who has had as many as 17 home runs and as few as 1. He's had as many as 24 stolen bases and as few as 1. But I really think last year was kind of a year where his skills kind of started to coalesce a little bit. And I believe that the Angels are going to let him play. You know, he only played 78 games last year. Power was down. He only had 6 home runs, but he stole 24 bases and he hit 300. If you think about it for this year and think about the skills continuing to kind of further coalesce, there's another guy that's going to hit upwards of 20 home runs, somewhere between 15 and 20 home runs. I think he's going to have over 20 stolen bases. I think that the projections of games played for him are a little bit low. I think he's going to play well over 140 games for the Angels, especially considering all the injury concerns they already have. And this is a player that could easily hit in that 265, 270 range. 300 batting average last year might be a little high for him, but it's also important to note that in 22 and 23, he hit 264. 264 is a pretty good batting average for a guy that's going to be playing every day. The strikeout rate is really low. The walk rate isn't great, but his OBP is about 350. I really like this player, and I think that it's a guy that really gives you a lot of value, especially where he's going in drafts. Again, as another guy that could be a corner infielder for you who's going to play every day and just really be a volume play. I really like Luis Rengifo.
All right. And let's send some love, like you said, to Bubba and the Bloom, two awesome dudes. And,
yeah, they're great.
Ryan always good. Like I appreciate him reaching out and giving us feedback on the show, and you guys are awesome. So all right. Let's go to Dave. You were talking about Bellinger and how he was someone who could take advantage of a short porch. Let's it seems that's a theme for you. All right. Looking at your third base pick. So tell us about Mr. Isaac Paredes.
Yeah. Once again, it's just looking at the stadiums and looking at the new locations of where people are. I love him this year. He's got a huge pull rate. And he goes from Tropicana Field and Wrigley, both places. They're not really the best for hitters. But now he's going to where the Astros play, whatever the new name is. And it's kind of like Fenway, where it's a really short porch, obviously not as high, but he's going to hit for power. His expected home run by park for the last 3 years, had he played there, were 21, 28, and 26 in Houston. He's got a low K rate, a high walk rate, ADP around 200. I just took him actually, Mike, in that mock that we're in right now. He's my starting third baseman, and I'm in.
Beautiful. All right. For me, it is Matt Chapman. That is the dude that I absolutely love at third base.
Good guy.
Listen, man, like we're talking Valentine's Day today. I think he fits with the theme of this episode too, because you go look at his StatCast page and it's all red, man. Like you look at all of the batted ball quality, the bat speed, he's in the 97th percentile. He's really not that different. Again, I always like to look at the underlying skills. I'm not looking at RBIs or home runs or average. Like that means very little to me. What I want to look at is what went into that. What were the components that added up to that? And if you compare his underlying skills to a guy like Rafael Devers, their quality of contact, their contact rates are not that different. I'm not saying they're the same exact player. Obviously, Devers is someone I prefer over Chapman. But you're talking about a close to 100 pick difference in terms of their ADPs. And let me add, too, that Matt Chapman stole 15 bases last year. What did Devers steal? I don't know if he stole any. So, like, I think people are overlooking that. And, you know, the fact that he stole 15 bases as like a fluke, like, oh, he's not going to do that again. I mean, maybe. How do we know? Like, we know he's been a guy who's always had like this elite sprint speed, you know, and like he just never really took advantage of that. And listen, last year he decided that he was going to run. I don't know. I haven't seen anything as to why, like if that was a team thing, if that was something personally. He already had the contract, so it wasn't like, I don't think, motivated by that. He's decided he wanted to run. But again, I think this is kind of a recurring theme as well. This episode, like, give me a guy who I can reasonably project for like 8 to 10 stolen bases at third base, a position where a lot of players aren't giving me that. And he's got elite power. The batting average is the one thing that's not, you know, not great. But if he can give me 240 to 250, like I can live with that if he's going to give me the category juice, man. Like I don't even care. Like I know he's in not Oakland, San Francisco, but I think his power is so immense it doesn't matter. The Bad X has him. My last point on this: the Bad X has a projection for Chapman of 84 runs, 30 home runs, 86 RBI, 7 stolen bases, and a 244 average. If you plug that in, just as projection, if you plug that into like a SGP or auction calculator, the one that I use, he comes out as the 71st overall player. His ADP is currently around 130. He's an absolute smash. I have many shares already and plan on getting more. He is my go-to at third base.
Very nice. I'm in.
All right. Let's finish out here. We're actually going to cut the episode a little bit short today. We had some pitchers lined up, but we're going to make this just a hitters we love episode. So we'll probably have to change the title, Dave. But let's end on outfield. Mike, give us the outfielder that you are in love with.
This is another player that I really liked last year before he got hurt, and it was a really unfortunate injury. That's Jung-Hoo Lee for San Francisco. And the reason why I started to really like him, besides the fact that he's a really good baseball player, is that Bob Melvin announced the other day that he's thinking about batting Lamont Wade Jr. at the leadoff spot and having Jung-Hoo Lee bat third. Now, I don't know if that's really going to happen or not, but Bob Melvin has a pretty good handle, I think, on managing his teams and kind of knowing what he wants to do. If he ends up batting Lee third, I really like the value play that he is there. The injury last year was a freak injury. He ran into a wall. He hurt his shoulder. He had to end up having surgery. This is a player that was very productive when he was in Japan, batting third with Matt Chapman behind him and Willy Adames in front of him. I really like him a lot. Last year, he was off to a pretty decent start before he ended up getting hurt. And if you look at his Savant page, obviously he only had 158 plate appearances, but his expected batting average was pretty high, and his squared up percentage was about as high as anyone has had in Major League. So given where he's going right now, pick 244 in DCs, makes him the 59th outfielder off the board. I think this is a guy that could easily get you 15 home runs, 15 to 20 stolen bases, and hit a 280 to 290 average. And where he's going in drafts, that's a pretty good value, I would say, for Jung-Hoo Lee.
Dave, real quick, any concerns with Lee and his recovery, or is everything seem like a go for him?
Everything's a go. It was a go actually in, I think, November, December, I want to say. Back in 24, they said he was at full strength with no restrictions coming into camp. So
beautiful. All right, let's finish it out. Dave, who do you got at outfield?
For me, it's Ian Happ. He's been very reliable, very durable. 617 games played over the last 4 seasons, puts him 10th in all of baseball. He's only been on the IL once, and that was because of a collision with bruised ribs. As a major leaguer, he's been in 93.5% of all of the Cubs games that he could have possibly been in. And he's one of 10 players with a 120 WRC plus and a 3.0 F-WAR in each of the past 3 seasons. It's him and 9 other of the elite of the elite. I think at ADP 135, he could give you at least a 2010 with the potential for even more on both of those sides.
Beautiful. He's like, Mike, you were talking about Jeremy Pena before, someone who just gives you a steady production across the board, plays every day. Like Ian Happ for me is like the outfield version of that. More power, right? They're different players, but just kind of the same concept of guys that you can just, what you're getting.
Yeah.
Love it. All right. So my last player here, the outfielder that I absolutely love is Dylan Cruz. Just took him in a draft champions and was super excited about it. I think, his stolen base, like I was telling you before, like stolen base projections can be off. And I think sometimes you just got to look a little deeper. I think Cruz is an example of that. Trying to pull up here his projection. So he's projected by BATX for 23 stolen bases. I don't think there's any way. Like I'll take the over on that all day. When he came up, he was attempting stolen bases at an above 30% rate, right? So like full season, like his pace over the full season would have been closer to like 50 stolen bases. Now, I'm not saying Cruz, I'm necessarily projecting him for that, but I feel pretty comfortable saying that he's going to get to 30 to 35 pretty easily with upside for more. The Nationals have shown that they are going to, like with these top prospects, like with Wood, like with Cruz when he came up at the end of last year, they're going to play every day. They're not going to baby them. They're not going to do the platoon thing that some of these teams do, which I hate. They're just going to put them out there and let them do their thing. And it seems like the Nationals are committed to that. They put him at the top of the lineup at the end of last year. Like I expect him to hit top 2 in the Nationals lineup. I know the power wasn't quite what we thought it would be, maybe last year in the minors and in the majors, but I think it's good enough that I can see, 15, 18 home runs. 15 home runs is what he's projected for. Mm-hmm. For me, he's more of the speed play. Like I think he's perfect where he's going in like that 120, 130 range. Like just a guy. I feel like you need one of those guys in that range. Like he's going near Jason Dominguez, Pete Crow Armstrong. Like those are guys that I'm looking to give me a speed boost at that point in the draft. And I think he's a perfect guy to go to. Gets on base at a decent clip. Like I think he'll score a lot of runs hitting the top of that lineup. So I really like Dylan Cruz. I think I'm very confident in saying this time next year, we're taking him in the first 5 rounds. I feel pretty confident in that.
That's a bold statement.
Yeah.
I really don't think it's bold at all. I think like this is a former top prospect. The skills are all there. Now he's gained the opportunity. I feel, like almost like similar to Chourio last year. And Chourio had never even played last year. Chourio was going in this range, probably a little bit of a higher end prospect than Cruz. Not much though. And look where Chourio's going now. End of first, early second. So I don't know if Cruz quite gets there because I don't know if the power is quite good enough. But listen, he wouldn't be the first player to tap into more power going into their second season, at age 23. So these players develop, and I think it's now's the time to buy in a guy like Cruz. But anyway, we got to leave it there for tonight. Hope you enjoyed our Valentine's Day episode. We will be back next week with, I believe, Jake Rill of MLB.com to talk Orioles. And yeah, we will see you then. So for Mike Carter, for Dave Funnel, I'm Chris Torres. Thank you so much for listening to the Fantasy Baseball Beat.